If you are a frequent listener to the podcast, you know that we have been sponsored by Fuji Sports for quite some time now. Whether you're looking for apparel, equipment, bags, or accessories, Fuji Sports has got it covered. Go to fujisports.com to see the latest selection of everything you need for your jiu-jitsu, judo, or MMA journey. That's fujisports.com. Let me take a minute to tell you about RŌL TV. If you're looking to take your jiu-jitsu to the next level and supplement your BJJ education, then RŌL TV has you covered. RŌLAcademy.tv has over 1,500 videos covering individual techniques, positions, and concepts, including seminars and workshops with top-level competitors and instructors like Chris Wojcik, Robert Drysdale, Aaron Hurley, Emily Kwok, and more. Whether you are a beginner or a more advanced student, RŌL TV is the online platform that can take your jiu-jitsu to the next level. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. This helps us bring you the great guests and amazing content that you've come to expect. On this episode, Thomas and his guests discuss the importance of living a life filled with positivity and purpose, and how that leads to self-discovery and personal growth. They also discuss how brotherhood and community help you overcome challenges and the impact it has on your journey. Here's the RŌL Radio with the founder of Virtuous Fitness and the owner-instructor of Virtuous Grappling in Silverdale, Washington, Cody Smith.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live. Cody, welcome to the show. How are you? How is your morning going so far?
Man, it's been well, thanks for having me first and foremost. Second of all, morning has been going great. I am based out of Washington State and it's sunny today. So anytime I can get a little bit of sun, I'm just super excited about it. And like most Washingtonians, I've been standing outside facing the sun as much as possible, trying to get some of that vitamin D in. So I can't complain, man. It's been a great morning.
Is that the theme every morning as you wake up, to look at the sky and see if there's the yellow circle available?
For the most part, no, but it's definitely few and far between for sure. I mean, you wake up most mornings and look at the forecast and you're like, oh, 4 straight days of rain. Okay, great. But anytime we can get out there and enjoy it, most of us in this state for sure do. And I'm not even from here originally. I'm from Virginia originally, so it's been a little bit of a change over the past few years.
So we'll talk about that shift from Virginia to Washington. That's a long distance and big shift in the dynamics in the variety of ways. But before we get to this, I mean, oftentimes we look at even the simplicity of life, like weather and what's outside and so on. And many would look at the situation as like, oh, it's a gloomy day and it's gonna suck, and it kind of brings us down. And which both of us know that there's more to this, and having positive outlook on life and having positive outlook on day, it really carries us over, not only through the day, but who we impact, what we do, how we do, especially if we are in these leadership positions, as you find yourself teaching CrossFit, being leader of a large group of people, being involved in jiu-jitsu and obviously being a black belt. How do you view that as a perspective? And this is new to you, this cloudy weather, if you will, in quotes.
Yeah. So I've been in Washington for about 12 years, and I actually didn't notice how much of a toll it took on me until like a few years into being here. It's just I remember one day after an 8-hour night of sleep, I'm trying to figure out, why am I so sad? Like, why do I feel this like just dreariness about me? And I guess like the seasonal depression was like my first experience with it. And obviously, nutritionally, I started like hyperdosing vitamin D, making sure that I'm getting in enough like electrolytes and stuff like that, just to like fuel myself properly and to give myself the right nutrients that I needed. But then I really had to understand perspective, right? And I'm a man that lives by my core values. I live and die by them. And one of my personal core values is positive attitude. And I think I heard this story one time where a guy was basically talking about, he says, I mean, even for your listeners listening to this podcast right now, if you say like, find everything around you that's red, you'll find everything red, and you'll completely uninclude all of the other colors of all the things around you, versus, if I said, hey, find something that's blue, you'll find that. So it was just, he was basically illustrating this picture of what you seek, you find. So if you seek negativity, if you seek, being down on everything all the time, obviously that's going to just follow you and live around you. And if you seek positive, then you're going to find lots of that. So I think it's interesting when you understand behavior, in that when certain things happen to you, you label it with a reaction, whether that's a negative or a positive reaction. If you always label things negatively, you're going to react that way. But the behavior is a choice, not necessarily that's something that you're made to do. So positive attitude is a personal core value, even more important when you live in Washington State, where it's very easy to be sad all the time.
But that has to be hard. I mean, especially with today's society, where we are all literally attached to these devices, and the personal connection is just, I wouldn't say non-existent, but it's definitely different than it was 10 years ago. I'm noticing this. I'm even noticing this within the academy, where we are very digitally oriented. And this personal human touch is not as common as it used to be when I was younger, at least. You are talking about having very strong mindset, something to, persevere these obstacles, in a sense of, it's gloomy weather, or I don't feel like getting out of bed, workout is going to be hard today. I don't feel like lifting. I don't feel like getting smashed. Like, there can be a million things. There's million reasons not to do things, right? Sure. And so how do we overcome these things? How do you overcome these things? How do you create the positive mindset? Because that's work, isn't it?
Sure. I'd love to say that I'm positive all the time, and I do the best I can. When I do sales consultations at my gym, the thing that I always will tell people is that I'm kind of at a period of life at 38 years to where I think a lot about like purpose, and understanding that this thing isn't for, maybe it's because I'm coming in on middle age, like who knows. But at 38 years, I've really tried to get to a place where, like, I understand, like, I want to know, like I'm a faith guy too. So it's always like, God, why am I here? Am I living up to that purpose that you've set me out on? But inside of that, understanding that, like, life is not infinite, right? And that, tomorrow is never promised. I've had a lot of people very close to me over the past few years that have died way before their time. So it's just kind of this always, most people understand when somebody like very close to them passes away, what's the first thing you do? You hold the thing sacred even closer, because it's just this reminder. So I try to kind of live, for lack of better terms, with this thought of like, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. So it's like, I can choose to live every day sad and, just be destroyed or pushed to a behavior based off of whatever popular thing or traumatic thing on social media that is going on. Or I can understand that, like, tomorrow's not promised. And a lot of people say this. A lot of people say that tomorrow's never promised, live to your fullest, but like then they stop at the audio. They don't continue through the action in the video. I really try to walk that out, and I hope that people that spend time around me understand that about me, and be like, man, like, people come into the academy or they come into the gym all the time. They're like, Cody, how are you today, man? And I'm like, I could just be, oh, I'm good, like most people. But I say, no, like, I'm living the dream. And most people think that I'm being condescending or sarcastic. And I'm like, no, I'm being serious though. Like, I try to remember why I started, and that I could be hit by a bus tomorrow every single day.
What I start doing, and this is just my personal thing, is I've noticed, as people come to the academy, we come across, a lot of people, especially as an instructor, and oftentimes the first thing is, how are you? Right. And the 99.9% answer is, I'm good.
I'm good.
So what I start asking is what's so good about it? Give me one good thing. And then I can tell the wheels are spinning, they're like, well, this and this. Well, that's great. That's phenomenal. That makes a good day. Good for you. Let's keep pushing. Let's have a good session. Let's work. Let's do some positive things. Do you feel like there is a lot of negativity around us all around? That's why we have to work so hard?
I do, actually. I think it's cool to be negative, right? It's cool to be, we went through this push, I feel like, in society, to where like everybody's talking authenticity. I just want to be my truest authentic self. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't live. So my mentor said to me one time, he says, most men get more of what they don't want instead of what they want. And I think people live in a place consistently of like not living the life that they want to live. And I spend every single day trying to get more of what I want and less of what I don't want. And I mean, you're a business owner, right? You understand, like we just get crap sandwiches sometimes you just come across and you just got to eat it and keep rolling with it. Right. But, I just do my best not to let that control me and to not let the negativity enter my space. You know what I mean? And again, like I'm not perfect with this, you know, there are some days where it's just like my mat, I'm just on the mat, I'm just letting my feelings out, you know, and people are just getting it. But other days it's just, I just try to remember that in a world where negativity is cool, I want to do the opposite to that. And I want people around me to feel that. I want people to come around and be like, man, like when I'm around Cody, he just makes me feel better, right? Like it's just something about him. He turns my energy around. And as long as I can be that for people, I think, I don't know, I'd like to think one day that I can change all this negativity. And I'll just start with my academy and my gyms for now, you know.
Can you? Do you feel you can?
I feel like I'm so removed from negativity sometimes in my personal space that when I step out, it's like, oh, okay, this is actually how it is out here. You know, so I spend a lot of my times in the gym, you know.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What happens if you do come across this negativity? What if that breaches into the academy? Do you just walk away? Do you make a point of physical separation? Do you ignore it? Or do you actually try to change their mind?
Depends on whether, like, how close is that person to me? If it's a, you know, if it's a complete stranger, I'll do the best I can to encourage them and to kind of like maybe show them like a different way of thinking. If it's somebody that's like in my, like, you know, in the gym, in my day to day with me, I'm either going to help them to kind of change the way that they're thinking and being, or I'm going to remove them from my space. Right. Like we've got to, I don't know, sometimes you have to cut the cancers out of the academy from time to time, especially if they're polluting the community and the culture, you know, which is
hard, isn't it?
It's really hard. It's really hard. But you know, most growth is on the other side of a hard conversation, right? Like most of the things we want is on the other side of like saying the uncomfortable thing to the person.
But people often don't see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and again, like, am I going to change 20 years of a person's, you know, psychological understanding or behaviors in one conversation? Probably not. It's funny. I can't save everybody, right? But I try really hard to do so. I had a guy recently, funny story. My son plays travel baseball, and he was, you know, he comes over and he's essentially telling me he's playing travel baseball. I was coaching his son in like strength and conditioning, and he comes over and he's like, hey, you know, my son needs to stop training with you right now, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, cool, man, completely understand, no big deal. And then we're just kind of doing small talk, and I was just telling him that I just finished training and then I was coming to pick up my son from baseball practice. And he says, oh yeah, I used to do that. And then, you know, I got really busy. You know how it is. And I was like, I'm sorry, man, I don't actually. And then I was like, but I said it, try to be like non-abrasive. I was like, hey man, I think sometimes people have more time than they think they do. And then actually we did this whole thing. I was like, hey, walk me through your day. Like, what does your day look like? You know, and I'm being curious and I'm taking my voice up and down because I'm almost like selling him a little bit. And I just simply say to him, like, hey, walk me through your day. And I was like, I don't know, man, I hear a couple hours in there where maybe you could get to the gym if you wanted to. And he's smiling at me because he knew I was right. So in that particular situation, I got to kind of change the negativity and I kind of write him change him in a different direction. But I don't know if that answers your question, but it all depends, really. It's like, how close is that person to me?
Oh, yeah, but all of this connects together, right? It's like, even you talk about having time for things, right? And it is like, I think every single instructor, every single leader in some capacity hears this conversation. This conversation takes place, you know, oh, so-and-so, I don't have time. I wish there was more time. And I'm curious what your thought is on all of this, because you just brought this up. Is it a factor of having more time, or is it a factor of priorities in our life?
It's always priorities, 99% of the time.
I mean, isn't it? I mean, if we look at it from that perspective, everything becomes simpler, doesn't it?
Right. I mean, you probably do this too. I live and die by a calendar. I mean, literally before we got on this podcast,
my God.
I was like,
I cannot coexist without my calendar.
Right. And it's like, I heard somebody say one time, they say, look at your life like a buffet and try to take everything you can off of it. And it's like, okay, cool. If I'm going to take everything off of the life buffet to like make sure my 100 years here are just, fully maximized, then I'm going to be super pinpointed with my time. And I think I'm even in this weird spot. Maybe you can relate to this. I'm in this weird spot right now where like there's so much done in a day. If I don't crush my day every day like that, I almost feel like I left too much on the table. Like I didn't do enough that day,
Yeah, that's completely me. Like I feel like sometimes I feel unaccomplished. And like there was a full day of teaching and running business and meetings and operational and motivation for others and guiding and coaching and all these things. And then I get home and I was like, I feel like I didn't do anything today. And like I feel unaccomplished, and that's a big struggle for me. And I find myself balancing things, trying to balance things where the work does not overtake my entire day every day. But that's hard for me.
Definitely a weakness I have too. But I tell you, I think for high achievers, right? Like we get so much more accomplished than maybe we allow ourselves to like, be proud of, I guess you could say. And the calendar is where my day starts, right? So it's like even down to, I'll literally put my workout time, my jujitsu training time, my study time. I just put it all in there because it's so important. Now the trick is obviously trying to stick to the time blocks. And sometimes they do blend from place to place. But personally, it's a priority thing always, right? Put the big rocks in first and everything else comes second. I'm a father, I'm an academy owner, I got a bunch of gyms. Like my time has to be very pinpointed so that I can get all the things that I want to do done.
How hard is it to say no?
Very challenging, but I'm actually in a season of no right now. And this year, so I do a word for the year every year. My word this year is refine. Last year, I did a bunch of things, and I felt like we grew as an organization. I grew as a person. I grew in my faith. I grew in fatherhood. Like there are a lot of positive direction, but I sort of had verticals going everywhere. And for me, my year right now is all about refining and doing less better versus like doing a bunch of things everywhere.
Let me pick your brain on that. Let's dig into this a little bit more. Refine, some might see as a very vague statement. I'm going to get a haircut every day, or whatever the case might be, or I'm going to just get up at I'll get up at 9:05 instead of 9:30 or whatever that is. What does the refine mean? Define this in a very specific way, since that drives you every single day. I would assume, at least.
Right. So refine, when you look up the word, it's basically like you remove impurities, right? So for me, I look last year at what I basically did in that year and what were some wins, what were some losses. I'm not a big like resolution guy, but I would be lying if I didn't say that, looking at a new year allows me to kind of reflect and then look ahead, like forecast, what do I want to do? And the thing that I looked at is I personally sort of lost, like I took my eye off the ball for a minute, if you will, because for me, it's like, well, what is my purpose in a nutshell, right? Like, if somebody asked me, like, why do I exist? Why do my businesses exist? What I tell people is like, I feel like I exist to eradicate poor health and frailty, right? And what are my vehicles to do that? Well, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and it's fitness. And then I also lead a men's ministry at my church. So I feel, and that's more like the spiritual side too, because I want to make people capable men of God, right? So when I look at all those things and I looked at what I believe my purpose to be within the business personally, I realized that there was a lot of things that didn't serve that purpose, right? Again, going back to like most people get more of what they want instead of what they do. So I really thought about, okay, if I'm going to refine my year, I've got to basically trim the fat, right? Like I love getting on my Traeger and smoking porks and briskets and things like that. And what do you do before you put the meat on? You trim the fat, right? And you make sure that is a great piece of meat that is going on there. So for me, I looked at my year and I said, hey, inside of this year, what do I exist for? What's my purpose? And then what are the modes in which I serve that purpose well? That needs all of my attention, and most other things that don't serve that purpose sort of had to go away. And it meant, I was like boards on all these different nonprofits and I jumped off of those boards. It was I used to give a lot of time. Like I started a clothing brand last year. Like what am I doing? Right. Just typical entrepreneur thing, chasing the shiny object. Right. And I was like, okay, we're shutting that down. Okay. What serves my purpose? Coaching my students at my academy, leading my team well at all of our gym locations. And I will spend all of my time doing that and being a father and a husband and a leader in my church. Everything else sort of has to be put on. It's like the second tier of things that I'll give my time to, essentially. So thinking a lot about purpose and why you exist, where you eventually like traveling to, like what would you like your next destination to be? And then sort of like a season of no, right? Just saying no to opportunities that don't serve those purposes, basically.
Why is purpose so important to you? And let me reframe this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like many might see purpose as a counterproductive phase of what jiu-jitsu is truly all about.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, jiu-jitsu is viewed as, hey, peace, life is good, let's surf, acai,
Mm-hmm.
Let's chill, let's sit down and just, be in my guard. Whichever phrases you want to use
Mm-hmm.
is often viewed as this relaxed activity, as this kind of chill-like event. And not for all, but oftentimes. Sure. Purpose would counter all of this. Purpose would be very specific, very goal-driven, very requiring a lot of thought, a lot of thinking and planning. So how is this viewed in your mind?
Yeah, great question. The first thing that comes to mind, I would ask those people, why do you do jiu-jitsu? Why do you like the relaxation? So in some situations, here's what I've found over my years, and maybe you can attest to this too. Why do people like the relaxing aspect of jiu-jitsu? Because it's meditation, right? It makes them sort of forget about the things that are going on in the world. They can get singular focus. In some situation, it numbs them from all of the things, right? They're escaping, right? They come to jiu-jitsu to escape the life that they're feeling, and they numb out through jiu-jitsu. People come to jiu-jitsu and they enjoy the confidence that they get from learning things, right? It makes them feel useful. They do jiu-jitsu because it makes them feel good about themselves when they win matches, when you've got your mat warriors. So my counter to that question always is like, well, why do you do jiu-jitsu? Right? I think a lot of people just do things without thinking about why. So to me, its purpose is like, why? Why is anything, right? Like, why do we do business? Well, we want to make money. We want freedom. We want to support our families. We want to live on our own accord, right? Why do we teach jiu-jitsu? I teach jiu-jitsu because it feels really good when, somebody, like if I was your coach and Thomas, you come to me and you say, hey, thank you so much for teaching me that technique. I use it in competition. I won it. So I got a gold medal. Like that makes me feel good. So that's my purpose. Like that is selfish actually, is that I love how that makes me feel. But I'm okay with that. So I think purpose, my counter to most people when they're like what's like, like I just like it because I like to do the thing. And I'm like, there's a reason why you do it. You just haven't explored it. It doesn't mean that it's not there. It's like when people tell me they don't want to track calories because they don't believe in that. I'm like, okay, that's calories believe in you though. You can just pretend they're not there.
Oh yeah, they do.
True. So right. So it's like, so we can,
whether you like it or not, yep.
Right. So most people avoid purpose when it's like people listening right now. Why are you listening to this podcast? Because you're searching, you're trying to fulfill a need, a problem, a solution to something. I'm trying to chase that because like the more things I can just figure out about myself, the better, and it drives me nuts when I'm like, why did I do that? Like, why did I accept this podcast interview? I don't know. I like the challenge of having a free conversation when I have no idea what's going to happen. I want to meet a new friend. Right. So it's like, so you know what I mean? So it's kind of, purpose for me is just making sense out of the things that you do. And the more you can understand those things, because most people just don't know purpose, so they stay away from it. It's a scary topic. They just avoid it. Versus I'm like, let's do the hard thing and let's try to figure that out. And it's funny because sometimes I feel like my purpose is changing and I investigate it more because it's like, because the minute I feel personally for me, and like I'm a black belt, I've been training for years, right? The minute I feel like black belt or being an instructor in my academy doesn't fulfill my purpose anymore, I bet I will lose the energy and the drive into motivation to do it, and eventually would probably stop having an academy.
That's with everything, isn't it?
Yeah, always.
I mean, that's with our work. That's with our
Mhm.
family. I mean,
Yep.
that's with our kids. That's with educating yourself. That's chasing
Mhm.
your career. That's with the hobbies that we have. Like that's the moment the moment the why no longer holds value. This is when we move on to something else. This is why people quit fitness or jiu-jitsu, isn't it?
Yep.
Like
Always.
how many times you have a student who comes up to you and is like, oh, I have to stop training. And it's like, why? Oh, because I don't have time. Okay, I call bullshit. But okay, what's the true reason? What's the true reason why you don't want to train? And if you really, really, really dig, it really boils down to just handful things that might be happening in their life.
It's almost always like the reason why, the purpose is either so far away you can't see it, or they've lost sight of it, or they're distracted, or they're questioning if it's that purpose. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
then oftentimes, let me pick that. Let me pick your brain on this, because I also notice that oftentimes the moment we start questioning why for that individual activity, we start looking for different activity to replace it. And the moment it replaces it, we got to let go of something. It's like glass full of water. In order for you to fill it with juice, you got to let go of that water. You got to fill it. You got to make room for something else. You got to let go of your mind in order for you to learn something new. It's always replacing things. We cannot continue inquiring things. Would you agree with that?
For sure. It's like, it's a moving target. And
yes.
Usually it's a person who doesn't know purpose on things or why on things will almost always stop. We see this all the time in our academies with blue belts, right? When they've been training forever, and the
blue belts,
the mythical purple belt is so far away that they just can't hang on long enough because they're like, I've just been getting smashed for all these years. When is it going to get better? And I'm like, it never does. Like even at black belt, sometimes there's fish in the sea that are bigger than you. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just kind of, you're just going to move from one thing to the next, and then that thing is going to get boring, and then you're going to go do another thing. It's just, it's a moving target. And most people, so what I'm saying when I say purpose is like, I want to, as quickly as possible, like try to be clear or understand that about myself, so that usually I can stop these things before. I'm not great at it all the time, obviously, right? But I want to try to stop myself before I get too far down like a path on something.
But Cody, I got to tell you, I mean, I 100% agree with all of this. I have very similar mindset to what you are describing, but yet I feel like that's that 1% of society. Everybody else, I feel, and like, I don't want to sound condescending or disrespectful towards anybody, but I do feel that this is a huge point of struggle for a lot of people. Finding purpose, finding why, and really understanding why the hell you're spending so much time on this one thing. And you truly don't know if it's going to work out or not, because that's a separate component of all of this.
Sure. You know, John Danaher said on a Joe Rogan podcast, he said, because they were kind of talking about all the things that are going on in the world, and he said the problem nowadays with society is that he was speaking about purpose. And maybe you've heard this episode before, maybe your listeners have heard it too, but he said, in the earliest time of man, our purpose was stay alive, right? It was find food, find shelter, don't get eaten by animals, whatever it may be, stay alive. Now it's fairly easy to stay alive for most people, barring, critical diseases and stuff, or terminal diseases and stuff like that, or accidents and stuff like that. So it's pretty easy to stay alive. So now, because we don't have purpose and we don't seek purpose or calling or whatever it may be, it's pretty easy to be unhappy, right? Because there's like, why am I doing anything that I do, and I don't know, that just drives me nuts, right? Personally. And I try to make sure that anybody that I talk to or come in contact with, or people that hear my voice, maybe offer them, there's a poster that a good friend of mine has in his office. He said, in a world full of average, be different. And that's kind of what I chase, and not that I'm like the rah type guy, but it's just, I keep speaking, I'm a man of faith, right? And the Bible says by their fruit, you'll know them, right? So I want people, when they look at the fruit of my life, that they see evidence of possibility, right? I often will tell my guys, I say, hey, give men something to respect, show them followable excellence, and give God something to work with. And that's sort of what I personally do in my life, is just like give somebody something to look at and be like, oh, that man tries to give excellence in his life. What can I learn from him? A picture of possibility, if you will. And that's just sort of how I live out every day. And that's counter to most people, because anybody that I come in contact with, usually like outside of my academy or outside of the gym, it's I see what I'm up against. It's quite an uphill battle for sure. I would agree with you on that.
Is this how it always been? Is this how always you have been?
No.
Very purpose driven, very curious about life, chasing this higher purpose, if you will.
No. Let me tell you about 10 years ago, Cody.
Let's talk about Cody 10 years ago.
10 years ago, Cody. Well, if we go 15 years ago, Cody, I was a 325-pound guy. I had just gotten out of the Navy and was basically trying to figure out what I'm going to do with myself. And got out of the Navy and basically found a love for eating fast food and drinking and smoking. And during my Navy time, I had the opportunity to do some Marine Corps combatives with the Marines on board, right? And I basically got guillotined every day because that's the only submission I feel like. Guillotines and Americanos is all they know, right? And when I got back stateside, I'd picked up jiu-jitsu, and sort of, the bottle, if you will, the alcoholic bottle and cigarettes sort of took precedent over that, and I had stopped and gained a bunch of weight. And I said, man, I've got to do something about this. So went back into a jiu-jitsu gym and joined up and went hard at it, lost a bunch of weight, started working out, discovered CrossFit during that time, and got into doing MMA. Did my first fight. I was about 245 at that time. I'd come down quite considerably weight-wise, and still drinking a little bit, still partying. Decided I don't really want to fight heavyweight anymore. I'm 6'5" guy, and I was like, I don't know that I want to fight heavyweight anymore. That guy laying on top of me was hard. So lost the rest of the weight, and come to find out, I had been training so much that my marriage was beginning to fail. And I would spend 4 to 5 hours at the gym most days of the week. I had a young son at the time, and I, again, took my eye off the ball, right? Went through a horrible divorce during that period of time, and kept fighting because it was kind of my outlet. Like the gym gave me something to do other than sit around and think about how awful my life was, right? And ended up going through a bad divorce, bad custody battle, and all throughout that time, I was doing government contracting, working a job that I hated, and I just kept asking myself, like, is this all I've got? Is this just what life's going to be? And fast forward a few years, had stopped doing jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and all the things fighting. Won some titles, amateur, and it was all hollow. Like, I did it because I didn't know what to do with myself, and I had rage and anger and stuff like that. So met a young lady, and I'd hate to say like this woman saved my life, but it just picture a possibility. She was the first woman that ever made me feel like she was worthy enough for me to change, and started to change things about myself, discovered personal development, and discovered like, oh wow, like just because I didn't go to college and make something of myself through like the typical traditional way, there is possibility still, right? There is something that I can do with myself. And I started to notice with every book that I read, with every course I went to, every mentor I had, every seminar that I would attend, that I just got better and better, more mentally healthy. And this continued, grew my gyms. Eventually I sort of had the opportunity to take over a location, and I started listening to the Jocko Willink podcast, good old Jocko, talking about jiu-jitsu. And at the time I finally made it to about 4-stripe blue belt. And my old instructor, I asked him, would he come out here and spend some time with me and get me up to speed? And I was going to open an academy as a 4-stripe blue belt. He came out, spent a couple months with me, promoted me to purple belt. I opened my academy. And then I'd love to tell you during that time that it was just all uphill vertical from then, and it wasn't. I still was a jealous man. I lacked confidence. I was not a confident leader. I had all of these people around me and they didn't know that I had no confidence in myself. And then about 2 years ago, I went to a men's conference that was called Launching Pad. And the craziest thing is okay if I'd like talk about my faith on here. I don't want to be like,
yeah, no, absolutely. No. This is all about you.
Yeah. Well, cool. So went to this Launching Pad men's conference, and there was a lot of events that you did in particular. You know, one event was if you did 700 lunges, and the entire time you got people just sort of like yelling at you and pumping you up and motivating. It was crazy. Then you do some cold plunging while you're getting prayed over. But the thing that really shook me is there was this one particular exercise where you wrote down on a sheet of paper all of your burdens, all the things that you struggle with. Mine was like lack of purpose, lacking imposter syndrome, angry, like just all the things that I really struggle with. I wrote it on this paper, and only I saw it. Put it in my pocket, and I go and I get prayed over by a man named Steve Weatherford, and he's praying over me. And Thomas, as real as I'm sitting right in front of you in this screen, this man was basically telling me what I wrote in my paper. And he was just praying over me and saying that this wasn't going to happen and that I was going to release myself from these things and that, you know, God was going to reach down and help me. And I'm generally a skeptical person. I like to think that I had a faith. Like I would tell people I believe in God and stuff like that. But I just could not shake the fact that this dude was reading my mail, dude. He knew exactly what my paper said. And then I went over after he prayed over me and I threw that paper in a fireplace. And then I felt like I was going to vomit. I had to go sit down. I sat down, and for about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe longer, it was so crazy. Like, I just felt nauseous. And then eventually a good friend of mine was at the same event with me, and he was about to go and get prayed over and stuff like that. And I stood up. And when I stood up, I'm telling you, it was like, it was gone. It was like I had been released from it. It was the craziest thing ever. So I'm sitting there, and I'm at the same time, I'm like, what just happened to me? What kind of witch doctor voodoo stuff just happened to me? Right. And there was one last, so that kind of shook me loose. And I asked for God to release me from being angry, to release me from lacking purpose, to release me from all these things. And he gave us 2 challenges. The speaker of this place gave us 2 challenges when we left. One thing was to violently chase understanding who we are, whose we are, and why we do the things that we do and what we value most. Right. So I violently chased that. But the other thing he says, I dare you to give everything you've got to God for a year and just see what happens. So, I mean, I could show people on my cell phone. It says June 2nd, 2023, all in on God. I gave God all of my everything. I only listened to worship music. I stopped cursing. I chased my purpose. In about a year, I was a different person. My relationship's better than ever. My leadership's better than ever. I'm more convicted. I care less. Usually, unless it's like somebody else's platform, I don't want to like make things weird for people. But like, I speak about God boldly. I speak about it to my team in the gym when I'm training. People just know who I am and what I believe, and they love me for it. Like I have people that like don't believe in what I believe, but they like respect that I'm so convicted. I had a lady the other day told me, she says, "Listen," she's like, "Cody, I really appreciate you." And I was like, "Why?" She was like, I don't believe in God. She was like, "But I love that you love God so much and you're not scared to show it." And it was kind of this cool like thing of just reminding me of like, I don't have to like hit people in the face with a dodgeball with Jesus, Jesus, dang. But like when asked, I will talk about it pretty boldly, right?
Yeah.
And since that point, June 2nd, 2023, it's been a trajectory of, man, I really know who I am. I really know whose I am, right? I'm God's. I know that I'm a man of honor, certainty, and discipline, right? Like these are things that I speak about all the time. I created core values and mission statements in all my businesses, but not something you slap on a wall. It's something we literally do, right? I have core values and stuff in my family. My kids know that it's honor, leadership, excellence, and positive attitude, right? But we say that, we call it the Smith standard because my last name is Smith. And dude, I can't just speak on how much that changed my life. And since that point, it's just been a trajectory of me understanding myself. And if you'd asked me 5 years ago that I'd be here, I'd be like, you're a psychopath. But it's just kind of where I'm at.
So that's the Cody 2.0.
Cody 2.0 for sure.
So it seems like there's no question what was the pivot moment in your life.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm actually curious prior to that because many struggle through these experiences that you've talked about at the beginning of this story,
Yep.
getting out of Navy and being quite overweight. And I come from the same experience. So like there's a lot of, I can relate to your story very personally, and struggling with weight and finding jiu-jitsu in some way and shaving some of this off. And you go through these events, if you will. And this, as outsiders, I'm listening to this story, it feels like there's a lot of up and downs of I try, it works, and then there's a dip. And then again, I try and it works, and there's a dip. And until that event that you described at the end, what was so difficult prior to all of this? Clearly finding jiu-jitsu was one of those anchor points that continued dragging you along the way, if you will. That was that like a saving boat, like a survival boat for you?
I feel like when you asked me earlier, like, what do I say to the people that, jiu-jitsu's fun, it's acai, it's surfing, I mean, I didn't surf or eat acai, but it was like, oh, it's fun. Like I'm playing jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu was actually kind of a numbing agent for me for a little bit. And same thing with fitness. It was almost like it was like a life raft, if you will. But I needed a boat, I needed something that floated, and for me, it was like understanding that purpose. Right. But I think if, people often ask me like, hey, how did you turn it around? And I'd love to tell you that it was like something that, other than that one experience where that man basically prayed over me, and I believe that, like, God delivered me from some burdens that I had. Other than that, I can't think of many things, but I can tell you what the similarities of all these like ups have come from, and what's kept me up is people who show me a picture of possibility and sort of come alongside me. Like, one of the things that I tell my guys is I always tell them that if you like want to change something, that like you need somebody, you need brotherhood, right? You need people around you that can lift you up, and sort of you can borrow their strength, if you will. But the ups and downs, I think the times that like I found myself the most up and where I've stayed up is just being around the type of people that sort of keep me there and don't allow me to, like, when I slip, they pick me back up again. You know what I mean? And that's guys that I have on the mat with me. That's people on my team that are part of my leadership group. That's mentors and stuff that I keep around me, So I don't know if that answers your question, but like there was.
Is that important to you? Is that important to us in general? Having that bond, that the brotherhood, as you described, should everybody have that?
I mean, it's one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Belonging.
Yeah, belonging.
I think it's so important. I think people searching when they come to our gyms, they're searching for that.
But then let me flip that. But let me flip that. Let me counter there in a sense, or let's dig into this, because a moment ago we talked about negativity, and that brotherhood can also drag us down.
Sure.
Right. So being selective where we belong, or where we are accepted, is key component of all of this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if most people like, here's a cool exercise for your listeners, right? Yes, crabs in a bucket, right? They'll pull you right down if you're around the wrong group of people. I think sometimes it's so simple. Like, somebody asked me one time, they said, hey, I'm really struggling with like, what am I going to do with myself? And I was like, okay, cool. If you could design the most ideal version of yourself, what would that look like? And I gave them this exercise and said, hey, think about yourself like a video game character, right? I want you, if you were like, I used to play Tekken and Streets of Rage or Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and all these games, and they had their attributes, right? I was like, if you went and you selected, I'll speak about myself. If I made the most ideal version of Cody, right? The impossible version of Cody right now. If I made that version, what would he do? How would he act? How would he speak? How would he spend his time? Who would he spend his time with? What would that person look like? I think if more people sort of like thought about that versus like on the battlefield, right? They don't put the commanders, the ones calling all the shots, in the battle, right? They step out over top and they make strategic decision. I think if people made more strategic decision around like who they want to be, where they want to go, all these sort of things, it's actually a lot easier to get out of these bad environments than people may think. It's just they just sort of well, this is just how it's going to be. You know, I'm just stuck overweight. I'm never going to be good at jujitsu. I'm always going to, I don't have enough time to work out. It's like, well, sure, you can keep letting that chain be attached to you. You can think like, well, what do you want? Again, purpose. What do you want? If we think more about what we want and less about the things that are happening sometimes, and we make a strategic decision about the way that we spend our time, gifts, talents, and treasures, like the better off we can be. And it's so interesting. Like, you could probably go to anybody in your academy right now and say, like, what do you want? And they'd be like, I don't know, like, train jiu-jitsu, whatever it may be, you know what I mean? Because like nobody spends any time understanding what they want. Because if they did, I bet we'd have a lot less negativity. We'd have a lot less people that would pull us down. You know what I mean? I would venture to say you're a man that probably knows exactly what you want, right? Hence why you have successful academy, successful podcasts, probably great relationships, right? Like you would probably spend some time understanding what you want, and you're getting more of that versus like just kind of stumbling through life. And then at, 70 to 80 years old, you're like, well, I got all these regrets. You know what I mean? Here's another fun exercise. Make a chat GPT thread of your 80-year-old self and ask it questions about the things you're struggling with. And it's wild the answers you get, because it answers it from the perspective of a man who has lived a long life and has less life ahead of him than he does behind him. Like, that's interesting, right? And it's sort of, I do it all the time. I'm struggling with something. I go bounce to 80-year-old Cody in chat GPT, and it gives me this answer. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Because it's like learned about how I think and my values and stuff like that. It's been a super interesting thought experiment.
Isn't it interesting how when we are younger, we chase these things,
Totally.
whether it's the new house or the job or the black belts or whatever the case might be. And then, as we get more seasoned, we appreciate slightly different things. The things that we thought were so important just a decade ago, they are not important anymore. And matter of fact, oftentimes we toss them out. They are the clutter. They are the distraction. They are the unnecessary things, and things that we didn't necessarily valued at the beginning of our life. Now they become this core pivot points of what we want to be and where we want to be. But the time has passed.
That's right. It's been a very fascinating thing for me in my journey, especially the last 2 years. It's just been this crazy acceleration for me, and really kind of getting my hands on some of these things and really understanding about myself. And man, Thomas, I spend all the time I can just trying to get people there. Anytime somebody's complaining about something, and I just be like, what do you want? You don't want, so here, I have so many cool exercises. And I stole this from Alex Ramosi, and I believe he took this from, I forget the guy's name, Warren Buffett, one of those like crazy investor guys. Mm-hmm. But he says it's very easy to find all of the things that you think are wrong with the world, yourself, whatever it may be, right? I'm sure people can sit around and complain about all the things that they hate about my academy. I'm sure you can probably get the same thing too, right? So it's easy to do that. But what's kind of cool sometimes, and a cool exercise, is say, hey, what are the things, all the things that you don't like, right? All the negative things that you say, or you see, whatever you feel, the way you act, like whatever those things are. And then just do the opposite. Like, what would be the worst version of Cody ever? Well, he'd probably yell at his wife. He'd probably show up late to sessions all the time. He'd probably coach his jiu-jitsu sessions unprepared. He'd probably eat very terribly. He'd probably never work out. He'd show up late to interviews with Thomas on the RŌL Radio. You know what I mean? Like, he would do all these things. So, okay, cool. So what would ideal Cody be? Well, don't yell at your wife. Show up on time. Be planned. It's just like, you just flip it.
It's just so simple, right?
Yeah, super, right? Again, so like, people listening, what do you not want in life?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just flip that. You'll see a lot more things, and then just do more of that.
Yeah.
It really is easy. It's not super complicated. It's just, it's hard to do, or hard to execute, easy to discover.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel that we often focus on the negative more than the positive. I keep telling my team is, as much as we want to celebrate the things that we want to improve, we do need to, as much as we want to identify the things that we want to improve, we need to celebrate the wins. We have to celebrate the successes. That has to be on the forefront of our mind, because end of the day, if we didn't do anything right, this place wouldn't exist. Nothing wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't know each other probably. Right. So, yeah. You talk about growing a team, and you have few facilities. You are a leader of larger group of people. I'm not even talking about the students, but your coaches and so on. And you're very outspoken about is growing a coaches, instructors is an important part of every organization. Everything starts from the top, right? This is where the chemistry, the culture, the community starts building, top to bottom, right? What's so important about this? Why is this so important? Many, like you look at anywhere, and many, first thing, if you know jiu-jitsu, you can teach. That's one. If you know fitness, you can be a coach. I mean, that's pretty common. But also there is a separation between being a coach and being a really good coach, and that gap often is ignored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why is that important? So it's a great question. I'll tell you why I got there, and maybe you as a business owner can attest to this too. As we got busier and busier and busier, I realized that I was trying to do everything, right? I was a leader with 1,000 helpers, if you will, right? And I had a mentor that said to me that I need to stop being a leader with 1,000 helpers, and I need to be a leader who makes other leaders. And inside of my fitness business, I started, number one, you have to lead from what you're doing, right? You can't just, a lot of leaders will tell you to do all these things, but they're not doing them. You know, I actually had done a message inside of my communication channel for all of our teams this morning about lead from what you're doing or don't be vocal. And I basically was saying, like, you need to lead by example or don't speak about all the things that people need to do, right? So you come from a different place when you do that. So I started there. And then as we built teams, it was sort of, again, understanding like, what do I want my team to look like? And then trying to form that, and then putting people in the right places. And obviously there's different functions of business, you know, lead generation, getting them lead nurture, getting, you know, sales, all the things. So trying to put people to their strong points, basically. So I started there. You know, where I went different in jiu-jitsu, and I'd actually love your opinion on this. In jiu-jitsu, I always thought for a while, so my jiu-jitsu journey with my gym has been very messy. So we started as a gym where I was a purple belt leading an academy. And I had a black belt that was basically cross country who would help me with curriculum and stuff like that. But he didn't really help me with curriculum. He sort of just send me stuff occasionally. And I would sort of have to decipher how to show this thing, right? And, you know, I basically subscribed to every different a membership-based site to learn things, right? And I would basically regurgitate these instructionals and BJJ fanatics and all this kind of stuff. And I did that for years. Then I had a black belt that came through my gym, and I asked him, could he lead us? During COVID, I believe differently than he did. This caused a ripple. That black belt separated from the gym. And then I'm back. And at the time, I had made it to brown belt, and here I am, brown belt leading. I actually was not coaching Hurley at all, because I was leading my fitness business and still being very much a part of that. Then we had another black belt came, and he led us for several years and promoted me to black belt. He was a Marcelo Alonso black belt and under Carlson Gracie, and he promoted me to black belt. And then he was like, hey, I'm going to retire. This is all yours. And here I am again, sort of with a Ronin, if you will, no leader. And it's always this stigma in jiu-jitsu. And it's interesting because I come from a fitness background first and foremost. But it's interesting in jiu-jitsu, it always seems as if the jiu-jitsu coach is like, you know, the all-seeing guru. He's the Yoda. And then all stuff sort of flows out of him. And then if it doesn't flow, and maybe this is not the case for your gym, but all of this stuff flows out of him. Well, the reality is like, I have my hands in so many things. I've been training forever jiu-jitsu, but like, gosh, there is so much new stuff out there. And I got young guys here, purple belts, pursuing brown belt, high-level blue belts that are like, they're just consuming information at a rate that I can't do because I'm running the business. I'm being a father. I'm leading a fitness business. Like I'm so many different places to where I said, I went to a couple of my guys over there and I said, what if we became a hive mind? And what if I know what the experience I want in this gym and I'm going to create that. But what if we do this together? And instead of thinking everything has to flow from me and I'm the bottleneck in all of our decision making, what if we shared curriculum together? You guys roll with the guys, you train with the guys, I'm leading a lot of time. We can drive this ship in the right way. So that was the first change, is we created curriculum as a hive mind. There's 4 people on my team, and they're purple belt, 4 stripes. One of them's getting ready to turn brown belt. Myself and one of our female coaches, and we create curriculum together. And I guide the experience and sort of the template that I want to see. And rather than it coming from me, I now have people that are helping create curriculum. But what I found inside of that is that they feel like there's ownership, because they're like, I helped make this. And it's less like, oh, what is Cody showing? And more like, yo, we showed this together. This is all of our idea. So there's ownership, there's buy-in. And rather than it's like Cody's the all-seeing, all-knowing black belt, there are situations where I'm in the room and I'm actually just taking session because one of my guys is teaching K-guard. He's like, bro, I'm 6'5". I'm not running K-guard. I'm 6'5", 230 pounds. What do I look like going into K-guard? You know what I mean? So it's like, but that's sort of where I went with jiu-jitsu. And then when it comes to my fitness side, we have 3 locations. We have a location here in Washington. We have a location in Boise. And now we have another location about 20 minutes from my current one. I discovered that rather than me looking at there's all these roles, I've got to do them. I started trying to hire and to ascend people and looking in my space. How can I put the right people in the right places, and then give them like processes and systems, of course, to do these things and stuff. But that is a long roundabout answer, and maybe I gave no answer whatsoever. But jiu-jitsu, we have a hive mind, so I have ownership. I have a lot of instructors that, because they feel like they have their hand in the making of the recipe, they're so bought in, and they help and guide all of our curriculums now, because we have a couple of different levels. And then when it comes to the fitness side, it's just like, rather than me just delegating stuff, like I give them autonomy to make decisions and to lead in their own capacity. And there's just so much buy-in, and we've created so much loyalty through that. It's been an incredible experience. Our team is fantastic.
Well, I think you're describing leadership 101, right? I think this is one of the most misunderstood things about leadership in general, is everybody thinks leadership is telling people what to do, and it couldn't be farther from truth.
Right.
Leadership is all about taking care of the people who make decisions. That's what leadership is: putting right people in the right seats and allowing them to grow and become better than you ultimately. Because that's truly what this is all about, right? I don't know about you, but I'm not envisioning doing bearing bellows when I'm 50 or 60. I mean, I'm barely doing any of that right now. And then sometimes I go into my classes where I have my black belts or brown belts teaching, and I'm scratching my head, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I haven't seen this yet. This is new. And like, I feel like a student at these sessions. And that truly, that's what you want. That's what, that's a healthy environment when people have ownership of things. But many don't see it that way.
And why is that? That's curious. So, what I did the other day, I did this literally last week. We're doing like a turtle series right now, like attacking turtle from top. And it's so funny. My jiu-jitsu journey was like primarily no-gi when I did MMA. And then as getting back into jiu-jitsu, and maybe I'm a little older now, I love the gi. I just love the speed of the gi. I love the technicality of the gi. I feel like no-gi, I got no reason. 38-year-old father, you know what I mean? Like, who am I going with these crazy dudes who are no-gi, these studs, right? It's just not my game. So like, I've really loved the gi. So we're going through this no-gi series, attacking turtle. My guys are showing stuff, and I kind of, we're talking after, and I'm like, and I tell one of my guys, it's like, I love when you guys lead, because you guys are so much more up to date on technique than I am. And my other students are watching this, and it was like I was giving them power. Yeah. Because it was like that our black belt is saying our other coaches are legit. It was just like, and I could just tell they're like, man, like, I was like elevating them. And I like, because a lot of times it means, if a lot of trainers, and I think leaders think, for us to be above people, we have to step on others, versus if I'm above people, I'm trying to pull them up with me. I'm not stepping on you to get there. Like, I'm going to build myself up, and I'm going to pull you with me. And I felt like in that moment I was doing that. It was like I was passing the baton and empowering them. And they're like, yeah, I do know stuff. That's coming from my coach, like, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, a lot of students look up to us, right? It's that, I think, the black belt syndrome, if you will, I call it. It's like anybody who's a black belt in the room, they should know everything. They are the know-it-all and all that, and they couldn't be farther from the truth. And I actually find it very refreshing when students ask me particularly a question, and I know somebody has a better answer than me.
Yeah.
I won't even answer that, and I will tell them flat out, I could tell you, but why don't we take you to the expert? Like,
don't ask me about leg entanglements. I'm not gonna be able to get you that. Don't know.
Well, but look, recognizing that there's somebody better in the room, one, it speaks volumes about who we are, but also creates the ego check, right? I mean, how many people do you know out in the jiu-jitsu community who will say, no, don't do it, this is a wrong way, and don't listen to that guy, don't do this, and again, focus on that like a very single-threaded mindset versus having that growth mindset, and it's like, we'll explode this. Let's talk to this guy. I know so and so does this phenomenal. He has this system here. Let's pick this apart. Let's work as a team. I mean, that's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I often will tell people when I coach, because I've had instructors over the years that were like, "You're doing it wrong," and I'm like, "I don't know. I do this all the time to our higher belts in the room. I don't know that I'm doing it wrong." So now I tell people, I'll say I have caveats. So I'm a science-based fitness guy too. So it's very hard to say like, this is the thing. And I say it's most likely or probably or a lot of research supports. And I'll say this rather than like, well, it's this, right? But why in jiu-jitsu is it like there's one way to do something? So I've sort of adopted the mindset of like, listen, this is the way that I do it. I know that it can be done this way or this way or this way. And I'll even say things sometimes to the sense, I'll say, hey, this is not the way, but this is a way to perform, XYZ technique, whatever it may be. And I've found almost like people are more willing to hear from me and to hear my thoughts on things because I'm not so like binary on the ways that I think about things. I know that within the team, they love that like I'm so open-minded to stuff. And gosh, there were certain periods of time where in my journey where I don't feel like my black belt actually taught me stuff. I was learning more from, YouTube and we tell people there's 3 ways to get better in jiu-jitsu. There is the technique of the day, whatever curriculum we're going through. There is self-study, and then there's self-exploration. I found in my journey, most often, my self-study and my like working with a buddy and drilling some things was some of the most pivotal moments in my jiu-jitsu career. So I tell people like, hey, it's good to come and learn technique of the day. We want you to do that. And we want you to try to perform it in drilling and sparring and things like that, of course. But like, don't shy away from looking at techniques online. Don't shy away from going to Thomas Redenzzi's, Instagram page and learning some things. Like, I want you to do that. And maybe you learn something I can learn from you,
Well, a lot of this boils down to, or comes to the point of, we all learn differently, right? Like, we have visual learners, auditory learners and kinesthetic learners and so on. So everybody knowing how you learn is, I think, a pivotal point of not only growing, but especially with complex things like jiu-jitsu, really understanding is watching video. I have some guys that literally they can watch an Instagram video and they will go and execute 3 minutes later and they will do it phenomenal way.
I don't get it.
Me neither. I am the guy who has to freaking spend an hour drilling, dissecting, looking at mechanics and looking this whole thing and studying it in order for me to even think about it. But everybody learns differently, and knowing how we learn, it not only makes it easier for us, but also this is how we can help each other, right? Yep. I mean, this is what truly it's all about.
That's right. I 100% agree with that. And I struggle with that at first, especially when I took the reins and, my black belt, like, handed me when he promoted me to black belt in front of everybody, and he sort of basically said like, hey, Cody is our leader now. I'm stepping down. He's our guy. I felt a lot of weight of that as like, hey, that's a lot of responsibility. I've always kind of been like a second guy when it comes to the jiu-jitsu mat. And I sort of now try to live with a healthy responsibility or a healthy understanding of like, there are people in my gym that probably know great technique that I can't pretend that I know everything, right? And I need to be okay not knowing that and elevating those people. Because like, why in fitness do we go and learn from just because I've had a black belt on my waist? It means that I've been training for a long time. I know everything. Only I can teach you things. Because in the fitness realm, there's coaches that have been training for 3 or 4 years that are brilliant, and I learn from online all the time. So it's like, why has jiu-jitsu always been so different? I've sort of taken the route of, hey, I don't know everything. I bet we can elevate a lot faster if I bring everybody who knows stuff together. You know what I mean?
Sounds like a great leadership on your part, and that's the I think that's the important part for all of us to keep in mind, that we can't do all of it by ourselves. We need a team. We have to surround ourselves with people who are ultimately better than us, and allowing them, stepping back and allowing them to do what they do best, and really that's what makes the organization by far more successful.
Yep, I would agree.
Cody, we've been at this for over an hour, so time flies when you're having fun.
Right.
Before we start wrapping this up, it seems to me like you have accomplished quite a bit in your life, and especially the recent changes in a couple years. Many would say, this is it. I don't need to do anymore. I'm just going to coast it. Life is good. That's it. Do you feel the same way?
I believe that if you are not growing, you're dying. And that's a common phrase that people say. But the most important thing to do when things get easy is go hard, right? And I think the minute I believe in life inflation, right? World inflation financially, right? Things just get more expensive over time. But life inflation is kind of the same thing, right? So if we're not always growing, we're not always expanding our life, our success levels, worldly success. Obviously, people would say that I have worldly success, sure. But like there are also people that still need to learn jiu-jitsu. There's also people that need to lose weight and need to get in shape, need to get stronger, faster, whatever it may be. There's more people that I need to introduce to God, so like there's so much more that we can do. My wife just said to me a couple of years into marriage, when like I kept just doing things like doing more, growing the business, doing this. She was like, when is enough? And I looked at her jokingly, seriously, and I said, I'm a shark. I got to keep swimming, right? And I was like trying to be funny and also like try to look masculine in front of my wife, you know what I mean? but it was legitimate in that like I am most happy, most joyful, most purpose filled when I am pursuing other levels, because there's 10 levels I haven't seen. It's like in the video game, there's a mystery level I haven't seen yet, and I'm trying to reveal that. And there's more. So,
well, you don't know what you don't know, right? That's
exactly.
That's kind of where, or what do they say? More you learn, less you know, right? Like
literally,
more you discover. You just found out you were dumber than you were yesterday.
I'm the biggest walking idiot ever, and I've got so much more to do.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Cody, if anybody wants to connect with you, as a follow-up to this conversation, where can you be found? Website, social media, where are you available?
Social media is usually the good place. My handle is at Coach Cody Smith on Instagram. We've got a couple of gyms too. So at the time of recording this, we have Virtuous Fitness Boise. We have Virtuous Grappling, which is our jiu-jitsu academy. And then we have Virtuous Fitness Washington. We're working on one more that's going to be Virtuous Fitness South. That's going to be coming online in the next, 20 to 30 days probably. But those are all of the places you can find me. I got a YouTube channel. I vlog once a week. I'm actually in a challenge right now. I'm going to vlog once a week for the entire year. And I like to kind of show those things. It actually is kind of cool to document my life, but YouTube is a good place to find me. You can just search my name in the YouTube search bar.
Well, we'll make sure to post all the links in the show notes of this episode. So if you guys want to connect with Cody directly and ask him questions, follow-ups on this conversation, so dig into some of the topics that he talked about, I highly encourage you to do it. Cody, I appreciate your driven, purposeful, and really shark-like attitude in life. I truly think that if people did just a little bit of what you're describing, Earth would be by far better place to be around, and we need more people like you. So I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate what you do. I'll be sitting on the sidelines, seeing as you continue building the empire of yours, and so much to come right ahead.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Let's wrap this up for today.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.